We've just thought we'd just do a question and answer session, if that's all right. Do you mind if I ask the first question? The music business today is entirely different to when you started out. I wonder if you could share with us how you got into the business back then.
I can give you a brief historical look at the Supremes. First, thank you, Dave. Thank you so much. I trust that everyone here knows about the Supremes or something about it, or maybe. How many people don't know? That's probably the best way. Okay, one person, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay. So why don't I start with just a little brief sort of history of the Supremes, since you guys are all going to go into that field, one part or another of it. We the Supremes had about, I think it was 12 #1 million selling records in the 60s. And we had actually 5 consecutive #1s, which was really a feat that very few people have reached. But in the 60s, it was really, I would say, 3 major acts who sort of influenced the whole world musically, and that was like the Beatles, the Supremes, and Elvis Presley. I mean, we were the really iconic kind of figures in the 60s. And Florence Ballard, Diana Ross, and I started singing back in 1959. I'm sure you guys can't even imagine that far back, except maybe a few. So, but it was a long time ago. But we started singing at the age of 13, and we started singing in elementary school. At the time, rock and roll was still very, very new. You had some people there like Little Richard, Elvis Presley, and some other early rock and rollers in the 50s. And then we the Supremes started singing in the early, in the 60s. So we were sort of like the second string, but still music, rock and roll music was still very, very, very new. Motown Records was a record company that little Stevie Wonder came from, the Four Tops, the Temptations, Martha and the Vandellas, and people like that all came from the same company called Motown. And it was owned and started by a young man by the name of Berry Gordy in 1959. And that was the same year that we started singing, in 1959. So we auditioned for Mr. Gordy, and he actually turned us down. So I want to make this a big point. People might tell you that you're not good enough, or you can't do it, or they don't think that they want you there. If you believe in yourself, if you think you have talent, don't allow anyone to tell you that you can't do it. Because had we listened to Mr. Gordy when he said, we auditioned for him, and we think he liked us, but he said, come back and see me after you graduate from school. And I remember Florence Ballard saying, as we walked out the door, heartbroken, she said, he can't be that good if you didn't know that we were, a great group. But anyway, instead of going away and waiting till we graduated from high school, because we were still freshmen in school, 9th grade, we decided to go to Motown every single day and hang out in front of the company. And we did just that. So we would see people like Mary Wells. How many people know nothing you can do, oh my God? Well, she was a big star. She was a big star at that time. So she would be coming in, and we say, "Hi, Mary Wells, how you doing?" And then we see the miracles come through, ooh, baby, baby, and we say, "Hey, Smokey, so eventually they got to know us, and I remember one day, some of the producers came out and they said, "Oh my God, we need some hand clappers for the session, and they're not here. What are we gonna do?" We said, "We'll do it!" And that's how we got into Motown. We got in there because we were at the right place at the right time, and we didn't give up. So we get into Motown. We started to record. We recorded about 7 songs. Some of them were written by Smokey Robinson, and they were all flops. And so eventually, after we had been there for a little while, Mr. Gordy said, you girls really are serious. I'm going to put you with my top writing team. And at the time, it was Holland Dozier Holland. And they gave us our first hit record in 1964. So in the second hit record was Baby Love, which was #1 here in Great Britain, and that's the first time we came over to Great Britain, and we became international stars as well as citizens in the same year because the Civil Rights Bill hadn't been passed. And prior to that, you need to understand that it was very impossible for black people to want to achieve anything because as citizens we weren't really citizens, and segregation laws were there. I'll give you an example. If they had if there was a public water fountain outside, black people couldn't drink out of that water fountain because you were not, as a black person, you weren't allowed to drink out of anything unless except for colored only. And colored was the terminology they used for black people back in those days. Negroes, colored, niggers, whatever they wanted to call us. We really dared to dream, the three of us and Motown Records, dared to dream to make our dreams come true in an era where it was really an impossible dream because we were not treated very fairly in the United States. But as I said, we got our hit records in 1964, and along with that, we became citizens, and there were very few women who were out in the workforce. So we were one of the very early female groups to really make it big in those hard times. So I see that you're here in school. You have this great opportunity, and no one's telling you that you can't achieve this because you really can. I don't know if I can talk. Yes. You can really testing. You can really you can really achieve whatever you want because it's not like it was back in the '60s when you just couldn't do those kind of things. People said that you cannot do it. So you have a wonderful opportunity here to achieve anything you want to achieve in life because the doors are open for you. But never forget, there are people who came before you who could not do the things that you're able to do today. And when I look out, I see so many women, females. In those days, females weren't in the workforce. I remember when we were traveling around the world, we never saw women in the workforce unless they were getting coffee and tea for people. It was really a man's world. And so as I look today, we have female prime ministers and secretary of states and all these wonderful things. So the opportunities are really here for you today. But that's kind of our background. I just want to give you that in case you didn't know that, so you can really understand how privileged you really are because you have an opportunity that many of us did not have. But we did dare to dream, and it's still up to you to dare to dream, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do what you want to do in life. So now, does that answer your question?
I'm just going to move amongst you now with this microphone, and let's have some questions.
Sure. However you want to have it.
Have a question? Yes. Give Michael a chance to get back up the stairs there.
Still having trouble with that mic, huh?
I'm just waiting for it.
Well, this is a performing arts. You can project it. Just project it out there without the microphone.
If you weren't in the music industry, what would you have been doing?
I'm sorry?
If you weren't doing music and you didn't get noticed by Motown, what would you have been doing?
Oh, let's see. Because we started singing so very, very early at the age of 13, it's kind of hard to say what I would do, but I think one of the things I do very well in life is to teach. I probably would be some type of teacher. I love doing that. But also, as when I was younger, I wanted to be a ballerina. What else? I think those were the two things that probably I'd be doing. Well, I wouldn't be a ballerina because I've seen some of the toes of ballerinas and they're not really cool.
Thank you. Nice, good question. Thank you. Next question, please. Anybody? Back row, front row.